Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniatures, and it's Friday when I'm posting this at least, and that means yet another Obscurity in literature. And today I have actually quite a new book. This is Rain Like Hammers by Brandon Graham. So I am unabashedly a Brandon Graham fan. I first picked up his King City when that got picked up by Image in big ol' honkin' paperback form, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I had been gone from the North American. I believe Graham was living in Canada still at the time that was published. I can't remember. Maybe not. Anyways, that really kind of brought me back into the fold of North American English-speaking comics predominantly. I'd spent many years immersed in manga, and my shelves show it if you ever get a chance to see them. Maybe someday I'll take some pictures of them. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so the first thing that caught my eye was it was a rather unique looking cover. I don't know if I've ever done a video on King City or Multiple Warheads or Royal Boiler or any of his other books that at least aren't going to get me in trouble with the censors at YouTube. Got to keep that in mind. Totally reminds me of Josephine Baker, and when I finished the book, my thoughts were absolutely confirmed. Graham actually mentions that in some of the sketch designs. Our friend here with the scarf gave me, oh god, deja vu of an old kid's book that my wife had. I want to say it was like a German or Swedish, some kind of European kids picture book, like about a bunch of highwaymen or something, and they all had like just the kind of like scarves covering their faces and only their eyes, and they had like big pointy conical hats. I'll have to double check what that was called. I don't even know if it's been in English. I know that we found a video of it on Netflix when the kids were little, and it was like in badly dubbed English. But anyway, judging by the cover, this was absolutely going to be a weird, trippy sci-fi story. I didn't notice tons of crazy punnage all over the book. And to me, that's like one of the most obvious signs you've got a Brandon Graham comic, but thankfully there's plenty of that inside the covers. So what was interesting to me was it gave me kind of a very Prophet intro where we have like these mobile cities rolling around and a very French feel to how things start. Very clean lines, very detailed, very meticulous in their futuristicness. And one thing that struck out right away to me, if I can zoom that in here, as you can see there's a little elephant on the guy's neck, which has always been a little self-insert for whenever Graham kind of has himself in his comics, whether they be autobiographical or not. And what's interesting about this is I believe the first issue was actually done during the pandemic, and it kind of shows. You have the main character here, Eugene, just in a very shut away, isolated position. And Graham really likes to mess with the panels. I dig that. And there's all kinds of just weird throwaway lore that gets seeped into every page. If you dig sci-fi worlds where you don't get the full breadth of what's going on, I don't think you can really go wrong with his work. Of course, I still think it's an absolute crime that we have not seen any kind of collected editions of the Prophet run that him and his friends did in hardcover, upsized art style. If ever there was a book that Image has published in the last few years, 10 years I'd say, that deserved it, it was absolutely Prophet. I loved Prophet. Of course, I will admit, I was a Liefeld fan. Yes, way back when. So again, we've got all kinds of just funky, dystopian sci-fi stuff going on in the original chapter of the book. But then things take a turn for a completely different character, Brick Block here, as he enters the story in his sentient ship and ends up on the Sky Cradle, designed by some of the finest architect conductors at the time and home to the immortal families Yes. It gets weird. You have the all-child that was born in the dead center, which gets to be quite prominent later on, as well as all the manufactured robot help that lives there. And they have a whole thing about fingers being a key to various parts of the planet, and a little monster friend that Brick meets quite early on. Some of the work almost reminds me of like Von Bode's type weird, just loopiness. I don't know. Bode always had kind of a graffiti feel to his work, I thought, especially with his lettering, and that's always been kind of there with Brandon Graham's stuff as well. And then we get into L, and who L is, besides looking like Josephine Baker. The Dead Voice. And the Immortal Families and their whole thing they got going on. I really love the use of color in this book. If you're familiar with King City was all in black and white. Multiple Warheads, another book by Brandon Graham, was in all kinds of like just crazy colors. That book was a little bit tough to read at times. This one, while it's pretty funky, does really make sense in the end. And the use of the elephant tattooed people at the beginning, Eugene, in his city, really kind of makes me wonder if this is a very introspective look at what was going on during the pandemic. I don't know. I know at the end, Graham mentions, he's kind of excising his own issues working through this comic, but I love it. Now, this is very King City vibes right here. Again, if you never had a chance to take a look at that, it's a very unique book, but then again, most of his stuff is. There's this thing living in the walls, because why not? From an architectural point of view, there's all kinds of fun stuff going on here. Personally, I dig the unique look of the sci-fi stuff in this. Parasite worms, clones. Post-apocalyptic landscapes. General trippy weirdness. If any of that sounds interesting to you, I absolutely recommend taking a look. Say, like I said, there's a whole little thing in the back about his rationale behind making this book, which I always appreciate when he throws those in there. Sadly, there's not much in the way of extra pinups. A lot of his books also tend to have illustrations by a lot of his buddies, but it is kind of nice to see some of the layouts, some of the sketches. And I've got some of his sketch stuff as well. So, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a very personal story, I thought. But then again, I thought King City was too, and, Multiple Warheads to a degree. Definitely, if you're a fan of the unique and the different, I wholeheartedly recommend his stuff. If you dig stuff like Farrah Dalrymple's the Wrenchies, books like that, I think this is up the same kind of alley. So, something different. We'll put a link down below if you guys are curious to check it out. I wholeheartedly recommend you do. Very Mobius-like, I think, as well, in some of that kind of clean, nice art. I know that was a major influence on Graham, too, so that wouldn't surprise me if that was a major influence there. All right, with that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.